Pope Leo XIV grew up, as we've said, here in South suburban Dolton, which is where our Sarah Maki is tonight.
Yes, live outside of his childhood home. Sarah.
Yeah, guys, you called him Pope Leo XIV, but here we've been talking to people who just know him as Robbie. We've been talking with people stopping by who knew him growing up, and also just fellow Catholics who are interested in seeing the Pope's childhood home and his childhood home parish. We actually started our day by going to that church. That's St. Mary on South Layton in Chicago's Riverdale neighborhood. That church is long closed, but to the excitement of a lot of visitors, it is still standing. Visitors and neighbors now wondering what this means for the building. They're telling us they hope that the church will renovate this, allowing Mass to continue there once again. In their very biggest dreams, they tell us that maybe even the new Pope would come and lead a Mass there. And at his childhood home, a surprise to the neighbors, one woman stopping by her old block where she knew the Pope as Robbie.
If you grew up Catholic, Catholic is universal. So what's nice about Robbie, he's an Augustinian, and so that community is international. They're all over the world. And so that brings a special, I want to say, international flavor to the church, which it should be.
We also have some photos of the Pope as a schoolboy. Incredible to see these sorts of images coming out. The woman you just spoke with, you heard her there, but she also told us the same thing as his brother, that she grew up playing Mass with him. We asked her if she ever suspected that this would one day to lead to something like this. She said, no, she never thought of that, but she said he always had this spirit in him. Guys, and as we're talking to people in this neighborhood, they say they wonder what now is next for this area. They say that this could be a gift from God to Dolton. So we'll see what happens next. From the South Suburbs, Sarah Maki, CBS News, Chicago.
That we will. Sarah, thank you.
Our Sabrina Franza has been looking into the Pope's local connections here in Chicago. She joins us now with more. Sabrina, let me start with a question. When you did this story yesterday about how this was a possibility, did you really think this might happen? I mean, did his colleague really think this could happen?
Yeah, when I spoke with his friend yesterday, we had some back and forth about why, if it were to be ever an American Pope, this would be the moment. I don't think either of us really believed this would happen. But the reason behind that is because of his experience in Peru. He has other experience outside of the United States that we think, and his friend, his colleague was saying, would make him more appealing to the other cardinals as a worldwide figure now leading the entire Catholic Church. He thought that this might be the moment if it were to ever happen, and sure enough, it happened, Joe.
I'd say, God bless you. I'd say, the Holy Spirit is working. And I'm just very happy for the church. And I'm very respectful of him for taking on this kind of responsibility. Because it's an awesome role, an awesome burden that he's taking on.
You seem a little emotional. And Joe, we were talking a little bit about their time working together as colleagues. He said they learned how to be priests together. And we hear over and over again about how not only is he now Pope Leo, but he was a minister first and he was a priest first. And he was working here in our area, learning how to do just that, how to start his ministry. And he really made a decision in going to Peru. That move was so monumental. And I'll tell you why. It's because his colleague was explaining. It really marked a point in his ministry where he said he was going to dedicate his service to the poor. It is a nod now that we're thinking of the legacy that Pope Francis leaves behind to what he left for us to pick up, for the Catholic Church to pick up in his now absence. But it now signals that, yes, he is a new pope, will have his own papacy, his own legacy, but the poor, the marginalized groups that Pope Francis spent so much time making sure were included in the conversation will now not be forgotten in this new papal era that we find ourselves in Pope Leo XIV.
Sabrina, I'm curious, we saw the emotion there in that interview, but at least the Catholics I'm interacting with too, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same. There is just so much excitement, and do you think it's this so-called surprise pick that is really fueling that, or also some hope for where the church may go from here?
You know, I think back to when Pope Francis was chosen, and I remember a similar sensation of seeing the live stream of the smokestack and wondering, is it going to be black? Is it going to be white? You know, have they chosen someone? And then that anticipation that builds as you start seeing that white smoke was very much the same, because either way, this is an institution that has been, you know, thousands of years in the making. And the idea that a new person is coming in to be the head of something so large as the Catholic Church, and somebody that would really be making decisions or setting a, you know, a track for this thousands of year old institution that could prompt change, could inspire a younger group of people to be involved in the church. It really is moving. And when you are waiting to see who's going to step out and assume that role, there's so much excitement that just comes around that, let alone to then learn that the person that is going to be the next pope is somebody from your area. It's an incredible feeling. I, as a Catholic, felt very, you know, overwhelmed in that moment. I know you heard from Nora and others that are there that spoke to that same level of just joy that they saw in front of the Vatican in St. Peter's Square. And in Chicago, you're just driving around, you see that, you feel that buzz right now. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. And Sabrina, I think even for you, the non-Catholics that you hear from in St. Peter's Square are moved to. It's just such an emotional experience for so many people, even if they aren't Catholics. But I know, Sabrina, you were able to talk right as we were beginning to go on the air here to someone who knows him well from their childhood, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can trace his roots all the way to Dolton and growing up on the street. She had a remarkable quote. She said she would play Red Rover with the Pope, and that is just a crazy thing to say. I asked her, you know, how does it feel to speak that sentence out loud? And she said this was never something in a million years she thought that she would be able to say, but she was telling us about, you know, what it was like growing up on that block, how everybody would kind of be in the street and they would be interacting with one another. And she spoke about how faithful he was and his family was in going to church every Sunday and just leading the life of a Catholic family and being very public in their faith. Her name was Linda Georgich, and we spoke to her a little while ago. We want to play some of that for you.
We were just playing together as kids. I mean, everybody kind of just, you know, got together and did, like I said, I played Red Rover with the Pope, so.
I mean, just think about the sentence you just said. How does it feel to even speak those words aloud?
Weird. It's yeah, that feels very strange, because I know when I learned that he was cardinal a few years ago, I was like, as I was reading the Chicago Catholic at church, and I see, oh, Robert Prevost, I'm like, that name sounds, Robbie Prevost. It's, oh my goodness, and I recognized him, believe it or not, and I couldn't believe he was the cardinal, because that was just 2 years ago, I believe. And then to learn that he is Pope is unbelievable. It's just unreal to think that I know someone who's the Pope.
And you grew up in a way together in the same environment. What was it? Do you think that his roots in Chicago have influenced his career at all? And if so, how?
His family was very, very devout Catholics. I will say that. The mom and dad both were. I mean, they were, you know, they never missed church, and they were very active within our parish. His mom was like a member of the Altar and Rosary Society, and they were lectors in the church, very active, very devout Catholic family.
Mm-hmm. If you could, I guess is the hometown message, if you could send a message to Pope Leo or Robert, what would you tell him in this moment?
I would just say that I am extremely proud to have known of him. And it just, God bless him in his work. That's all. I just hope he is a good and devout leader for the Catholic Church.
Two more mentions I wanted to just touch on a little bit. When I talked to his colleague earlier, we were discussing a little bit about Pope Francis and his travels, and he was very much known for attracting huge crowds when he would go different places, especially in the beginning of his papacy, but he never came to Chicago. So when I was speaking to the father that you heard from earlier, Father Francis, he said that he's kind of hoping that the now Pope Leo, will make a visit in Chicago. In talking about his frequent back and forth, they would see each other often after studying in the seminary. They would see each other often in the airport and on airplanes coming back and forth from Rome. So it is not out of the realm of possibility now that we might have a papal visit here in our city. I did also just text him, to Vince Girasoli's point of making a little lighter of the situation. It is not clear if the current Pope is a Cubs or a Sox fan. But we are digging into that, and we will report back once we have more.
Well, he's from the South Side.
That's
so
true.
I
That's
know,
true.
I
Might
know,
be a
but I'm
hint.
seeing some whispers on social media about him being a Cubs fan. We need to confirm.
We will. Thank you so much, Sabrina.